You know those unknown phone calls you randomly get that you're not quite sure if you should pick it up? Well, the person in the first story today shouldn't have picked it up. Anyways, while we're reading today's stories, I'm going to be doing a little bit of remodeling on my base and a little bit of exploring. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started with the first one. It's from r/no sleep from user MoLogic. I work at a call center. A customer keeps calling to ask about things that haven't happened yet. I never thought I'd still be working at a call center at 28. That's the kind of thing you do in college, right? Something temporary to pay for textbooks and beer. But here I was, headset on, watching the queue numbers climb on my monitor while I tried not to think about the fact that my degree in marketing had gotten me exactly nowhere. The job wasn't complicated. Answer calls, help customers, reset passwords, walk them through basic troubleshooting, apologize when the product was genuinely broken, and always end with the survey prompt. You'll be receiving a brief satisfaction survey about today's call. We appreciate your feedback. Most people hung up before I finished the sentence. My metrics were fine. Not great, but fine. Average handle time of 6 minutes and 40 seconds. Customer satisfaction score of 87%. Enough to keep me employed, but not enough to get noticed or anything better. I was professionally invisible, which suited me at the time. The office itself was depressing. Gray cubicles, fluorescent lights that hummed at a frequency that gave you headaches, and motivational posters that someone in HR probably thought were inspiring. Every call is an opportunity. Your attitude determines your altitude. That kind of thing. My cubicle was in the middle of the floor, surrounded by 20 other people having 20 other conversations with 20 other frustrated customers. I worked the evening shift, 3 to 11. It meant I never had to wake up early, which was good, but it also meant my sleep schedule was permanently fucked and I never saw my friends. Not that I had many friends left. Most of the people I knew from college had moved away or gotten serious jobs or gotten married. The guys I'd been close with were all coupled up now, doing couple things, and I was the third wheel nobody wanted to invite anywhere. My roommate Derek worked normal hours doing something with data analysis that he'd tried to explain to me once, but I hadn't really understood. We were friendly, we split the bills on time, didn't leave dishes in the sink for more than a day, and occasionally watched a game together if we were both home. But we weren't close. I don't think either of us had the energy for close. The dating thing was getting to me more than I wanted to admit. It had been almost 2 years since my last relationship ended, and every attempt since had gone nowhere. Dating apps were a nightmare of ghosting and one-word responses. The few dates I'd managed to get were awkward and went nowhere. I was starting to wonder if there was something fundamentally wrong with me that everyone else could see, but I couldn't. My mom kept asking if I was seeing anyone. My sister had stopped asking, which was somehow worse. All of this is to say that when the call started, I was already not in a good place. I was lonely, underemployed, and spending 40 hours a week in a fluorescent purgatory helping people solve problems that didn't matter. I was exactly the kind of person who was vulnerable to something latching on. The first call came on a Tuesday in October. I just finished helping an older woman figure out why her email wasn't sending. It turned out she had been typing her password wrong for 3 days and was too embarrassed to admit it. I'd been patient with her, walked her through it, and she'd been so grateful that I knew my survey scores were going to get a bump. Small victories. The next call clicked through immediately. No pause, no time to take a breath. The system just dropped me the next person into my headset. Thank you for calling, this is Aaron speaking. Can I get your account number or the phone number associated with your account? There was silence on the other end. Not dead air, but the kind of silence where you can tell someone is there. I could hear breathing. Hello, this is Aaron with customer service. Can you hear me okay? Yes. A male voice, flat effect, no regional accent I could place. I can hear you. Great, what can I help you with today? I'm calling about the satisfaction survey. I glanced at my screen. No account pulled up yet. No call history. Okay, were you calling about a previous interaction? If you want to leave feedback about a recent call, I can transfer you to our survey department. No, the voice said. I'm calling about the survey for the interaction we're having right now. I felt the first little prickle of irritation. Another weirdo. We got them sometimes. People who were high, lonely, or just wanted to mess with customer service reps because they knew we had to be polite. Sir, the survey gets sent after the call ends. If you'd like to provide feedback, you'll receive a text message with a link in about 5 minutes. I'd prefer to do it now, he said. It won't take long, just a few questions. I appreciate that, but that's not how our system works. Is there anything else I can help you with today? On a scale of 1 to 10, the voice continued as if I hadn't spoken. How would you rate your overall experience with the vehicle accident on Route 47? My hand froze on the mouse. I'm sorry, what? The accident on Route 47, the one that will occur on October 19th at approximately 6:23 p.m. How would you rate your overall experience? I think you have the wrong number, I said. My voice came out steady, but my heart had started beating faster. This is technical support for... Were the emergency responders courteous and professional? Sir, I'm gonna have to end this call if... Did you feel that the airbag deployment met your expectations? I hung up, just pressed the disconnect button, and sat there for a second, staring at my monitor. The call timer read 1 minute and 14 seconds. My hands were shaking slightly. What the hell was that? Around me, the call center continued its normal hum. Deb in the next cubicle was laughing at something a customer said. Someone's phone was ringing 2 rows over. Everything was normal. Everything was fine. I took the next call. A guy who couldn't figure out how to update his payment method. Simple, straightforward, done in 4 minutes. I didn't think about the weird call. Except, I did think about it. For the rest of my shifts, it kept popping back into my head. The flat voice, the specific details. October 19th at approximately 6:23 p.m., Route 47. When I got home that night, Derek was already asleep. I heated up some leftover pizza and sat on the couch scrolling through my phone, trying to wind down. I opened up the calendar app and looked at October 19th. It was next Friday. I had the day off. I didn't drive on Route 47 often, but it was one of the main roads through town. I'd probably been on it 100 times. There was nothing special about it. I thought about the way the caller had phrased everything, like a survey, like he was asking about something that had already happened. I fell asleep on the couch with the TV on and dreamed about fluorescent lights and ringing phones. The next call came 4 days later, on Saturday morning. I wasn't working. I was at the grocery store, trying to decide if I wanted to spend the extra $2 on the good coffee or stick with the cheap stuff. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but I'd been applying to jobs, and there was always the chance it was a recruiter. Hello? Hello, Aaron. This is a brief satisfaction survey regarding your recent experience. Do you have a moment? Same voice. Exact same flat, affectless tone. I was standing in the coffee aisle of a Kroger at 10 in the morning, and my stomach dropped like I'd just gone over the peak of a roller coaster. How did you get this number? On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your overall experience with the job interview on November 2nd? What interview? The interview with Merchants and Associates, Conference Room B, 2:30 p.m. I hadn't applied to anywhere called Merchants and Associates. I pulled the phone away from my face and looked at the screen. Unknown number. I put it back to my ear. I don't know what you're talking about. Did you feel the interviewer adequately explain the position requirements? Stop calling me. How likely are you to recommend this interview experience to a friend or colleague? I hung up and immediately blocked the number. My hands were shaking again. An older woman pushing a cart gave me a concerned look as she passed. I realized I was just standing there in the middle of the aisle, breathing hard, probably looking insane. I left my cart and walked out of the store. At home, I sat on my bed and stared at my phone. I unblocked the number and looked at the call history. 2 calls. Tuesday at 9:47 p.m., Saturday at 10:13 a.m. Both listed as unknown number even though I'd blocked it after the second one. I googled Merchants and Associates and got a few results. There was a consulting firm in Chicago, an accounting practice in Boston, and a law office in Denver. None of them were local, and none of them had any jobs posted that matched my background. This was harassment, right? Or a scam? But what was the angle? The guy hadn't asked for money or personal information. He just asked weird survey questions about things that hadn't happened. I thought about calling the police, but what would I say? Someone called me twice and asked me weird questions? They'd tell me to block the number, which I had already done. I spent the rest of the weekend trying not to think about it. I went to the gym, watched football, ordered Chinese food. Normal weekend stuff. Derek asked if I was okay on Sunday night, and I said I was fine. He looked like he didn't believe me, but he didn't push it. October 19th was on Friday. I didn't drive anywhere that day. I stayed home, told myself I was being ridiculous, and caught up on shows I'd been meaning to watch. At 6:15 p.m., I was in the kitchen making a sandwich when my phone buzzed with a news alert. Multi-vehicle accident closes Route 47. 2 injured. The timestamp said 6:24. I read it 3 times, then I opened the full article. A 2-car collision at the intersection of Route 47 and Blackwell Road. 1 driver ran a red light, 2 people taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Road expected to be closed for several hours. The sandwich ingredients sat on the counter, forgotten. I read the article again. Then I went to my room and pulled up the call history on my phone. October 15th, 10:13 a.m. How would you rate your overall experience with the vehicle accident on Route 47? The one that will occur on October 19th at approximately 6:23 p.m. 6:23. The accident happened at 6:24. I sat down on the bed because my legs felt weak. This was a coincidence. It had to be. Route 47 was a busy road. Accidents happen there all the time. The fact that this guide called and mentioned an accident and then an accident happened, that was just a coincidence. Okay, my guy, you're in denial. This is like next level denial. Anyways, let's continue. Except he had given me a specific date and the specific time, accurate to within 1 minute. My phone rang. Unknown number. I stared at it. 4 rings. 5. I should have let it go to voicemail. I should block it again. I should throw my phone out of the window. I answered. Hello, Aaron. Thank you for your time. This will only take a moment. How did you know? My voice cracked on the last word. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the overall quality of the Thanksgiving dinner at your sister's house? What? The dinner on November 23rd. Did you feel the turkey was cooked to an appropriate temperature? Were your dietary preferences adequately accommodated? I haven't talked to my sister about Thanksgiving yet. How satisfied were you with the seating arrangements? Stop. Just stop. How are you doing this? Would you say the family conversation was appropriate and comfortable, or would you have preferred different topics? Who are you? On a scale of 1 to 10, how traumatic would you rate the revelation shared by your father during dinner? My mouth went dry. What revelation? How likely are you to maintain the same relationship with your family after this event? What is he going to say? Click. The call ended. I tried to call back immediately. It rang twice and went to a generic voicemail. The number you have reached is not available. Please leave a message after the tone. I didn't leave a message. I called again. Same thing. I called 5 more times with the same result. I pulled up my family group chat, the last message from 3 days ago. My mom asking if anyone wanted to come over this weekend to help rake leaves. My sister had replied with a leaf emoji and said, I'll be there. I'd sent a thumbs up. Normal family stuff, no drama, no signs that anything was wrong. I called my sister. She answered on the 3rd ring, sounding distracted. Hey, what's up? Are you and Tom hosting Thanksgiving this year? Probably. We haven't really decided yet. Mom might do it. Why? Just wondering. Has Dad seemed okay to you lately? Dad? Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I haven't talked to him much. Why? Did Mom say something? No, never mind. Just wanted to check in. Okay, weirdo. Hey, I gotta go. Tom and I are meeting some friends for dinner. Yeah, okay. Have fun. She hung up and I sat there holding my phone, feeling stupid. What had I been expecting her to say? That Dad had some dark secret he was planning to reveal over turkey and stuffing? This was insane. But the accident had happened exactly when the caller said it would. I didn't sleep well that night. Work the next week was a blur. I kept my phone on silent in my locker during shifts and tried not to think about it. My metrics were starting to slip. My average handle time was up almost 8 minutes because I kept losing focus during calls. Customers would be explaining their problems, and I'd realize I hadn't been listening for the last 30 seconds. On Wednesday, I got called into my supervisor's office. Tracy was in her early 40s, heavy-set, with the kind of tired eyes that suggested she'd been working in call centers for way too long. She wasn't mean, but she wasn't particularly warm either. We had a professional relationship that didn't extend beyond the walls of the office. "Aaron, I wanted to check in with you. Your numbers have dropped this week. Is everything okay?" "Yeah, sorry, I've just been distracted." "Anything I can help with?" I almost laughed. What would I even say? "Well, Tracy, I've been getting calls from someone who can predict the future, and he's been asking me survey questions about things that haven't happened yet." "Nah, I'm good. I'll get my numbers back up." She looked at me for a long moment. "You've been here for 6 months now. You're a solid employee when you're focused, but I need to see that focus come back, okay?" "Okay. If there's anything going on, personal stuff, you can talk to HR about our EAP program. They have counseling services, that kind of thing." "Thanks, I'm fine, really." I wasn't fine. That night, I came home to find an envelope on the floor by our apartment door. My name was written on it in a neat, precise handwriting. No stamp, no return address, just my first name. Derek was in the kitchen cooking something that smelled like garlic and onions. I held up the envelope. "Did you see anyone leave this?" He glanced over. "Nope. Was it there when you got home?" "Yeah." "Probably a neighbor. Maybe they got your package by mistake or something." I turned the envelope over in my hands. It was just a standard white envelope, the kind you can buy in bulk at any office supply store. I thought about not opening it. I thought about throwing it away, or burning it, or taking it to the police station and demanding they do something. Instead, I opened it. Inside was a single piece of paper, the same precise handwriting filling the page. Satisfaction Survey, Aaron Mitchell. Date, November 2nd, 2024. Time, 2:30 p.m. Location, Merchants and Associates, Conference Room B. Please rate your experience on a scale of 1 to 10. How would you rate the professionalism of the interviewer? Rating 8. Did you feel adequately prepared for the questions asked? Rating 4. How confident are you that this position is a good fit for your skills? 6. How would you rate your overall performance during the interview? 5. How likely are you to accept the position if offered? 9. Additional comments. The interviewer will ask about the gap in your employment from March to August 2023. You will lie about the reason. This will not affect the job offer. You will receive the offer on November 8th. Starting salary will be $52,000, which is $8,000 less than you hoped for, but $12,000 more than you make now. You will accept. I read it 3 times. My hands were shaking so badly, the paper rattled. "You good, man?" Derek called from the kitchen. "Yeah," I managed to say. "Just, notice about the package." I went to my room and closed the door. I sat on the bed and stared at the paper. March to August 2023. That was when Rachel and I had broken up, and I'd kind of fallen apart. I'd quit my job because I couldn't handle being around people. Spent most of those months in my apartment, playing video games, not answering calls from friends or family. It was the lowest point in my life, and I didn't like to think about it. On my resume, I listed it as freelance consulting, which was technically true because I'd picked up a few gig economy jobs to pay rent. But mostly it was a lie to cover up 6 months of depression. Nobody knew about that except Rachel, and we hadn't spoken since the breakup. I grabbed my laptop and searched for Merchants and Associates again, this time adding my city name. Nothing. I tried different combinations, different searches. Finally, I found it. A small business consulting firm that had apparently just opened a local office 3 weeks ago. Their website was bare bones, still clearly under construction. There was a careers page with a generic email address for inquiries. No posted positions, no job listings on any of the major sites. I sat there for a long time, the letter in one hand, my phone in the other. Then I did something stupid. I sent an email to the careers address. Subject line, inquiry about positions. Body. Hello, I'm a marketing professional with 5 years of experience looking for new opportunities. I'd be interested in learning more about any current or upcoming positions with your firm. Please let me know if you'd like me to submit my resume. Thank you, Aaron Mitchell. Yeah, he definitely made that with ChatGPT. I hit send before I could talk myself out of it. Then I went to the kitchen and asked Derek if he wanted to play some video games. He said sure, seemed surprised I was asking, and we spent the next couple hours shooting zombies and not talking about anything important. It was the most normal I'd felt in weeks. The response came the next morning. Dear Aaron, thank you for reaching out. We are in the process of building our team here in the area, and your background sounds like it could be a good fit. Would you be available for an interview on November 2nd at 2:30 p.m.? We're located at 1840 Commerce Street, Suite 300. Please let me know if this works with your schedule. Best regards, Jennifer Casto, HR Manager. I stared at the email on my phone. It was 8:47 a.m. I was sitting in my car in the call center parking lot, 15 minutes before my shift started. November 2nd at 2:30 p.m., Conference Room B. I could not accept this. There's no way I could go to this interview. If I went, that meant the letter was right. That meant all of this was real. That meant someone or something knew what was going to happen before it happened, and for some reason, it was focused on me. I should delete the email. I should block the number again. I should tell someone what was happening. Instead, I replied, "That time works for me. Thank you for the opportunity. I look forward to meeting you." What the hell was I doing? The next week and a half for the longest of my life. I went through the motions at work, came home, applied to other jobs, and tried to pretend everything was normal. I didn't get any more calls, no more letters appeared at my door. It was like the whole thing had stopped, which should have been a relief, but somehow made it worse. I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. I told my supervisor I had a doctor's appointment and needed to leave early on November 2nd. She approved it without any questions. The night before the interview, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, running through all the possible explanations for what was happening. Scam artist with lucky guesses, stalker with inside information, elaborate prank by someone I'd pissed off, mental breakdown, and none of this was real. Or something else, something I couldn't explain. At 2:15 p.m. on November 2nd, I was sitting in my car outside 1840 Commerce Street. It was a newer office building, glass and steel, the kind of place that looked expensive. I'd worn my interview outfit, the one good suit I owned, and I'd printed out 3 copies of my resume, even though they already had it. I could still leave. I could start the car and drive away and pretend this had never happened. I went inside. The elevator took me to the 3rd floor. Suite 300 had a small reception area with modern furniture and a young guy behind the desk who looked up when I walked in. "Hi, I'm Aaron Mitchell. I have a 2:30 with Jennifer Casto." "Great, have a seat. She'll be right with you." I sat down. The chairs were uncomfortable, and there was a coffee table with some business magazines fanned out across it. Everything smelled new. At exactly 2:30, a woman in her 50s came out and shook my hand. "Aaron, I'm Jennifer. Thanks for coming in. Conference Room B is right this way." Conference Room B. We walked down a short hallway. She opened a door and gestured for me to go in. It was a small room with a table, 4 chairs, and a window that looked out over the parking lot. I could see my car from here. Okay, side note guys, I know you guys are probably thinking the same thing, but did this guy stop to think for just a moment that maybe whatever this being is helping him? Because first off, it helped him avoid being in a car accident. Now it's helping him get a new job. Like, come on. Anyways, let's continue. The interview was normal, painfully, aggressively normal. Jennifer asked about my background, my experience, why I was looking for a new opportunity. I answered everything honestly, except for one thing. When she asked about the gap in my employment from March to August 2023, I said I'd been doing freelance consulting work and wanted to transition to something more stable. She nodded and made a note. If she suspected I was lying, she didn't show it. The position was for a junior marketing associate. Client outreach, social media management, some basic analytics. Not exciting, but it was much better than the call center. The salary range was $48,000 to $55,000 depending on experience. We talked for 45 minutes. She asked if I had any questions. I asked a few generic ones about team structure and company culture. She answered them pleasantly, then stood up and shook my hand again. We're talking to a few candidates this week, but I think you'd be a strong fit. I'll be in touch soon. I thanked her and left. In my car, I sat there breathing hard like I'd just run a mile. My hands were shaking. The interview had happened exactly as the letter said it would. Conference room B, 2:30 p.m. She'd asked about the gap. I lied. I drove home in a daze. On November 8th, I got a call from Jennifer Casto. They wanted to offer me the position. Starting salary was $52,000. I accepted. Thanksgiving was at my sister's house. I'd thought about not going. I'd thought about a lot of things. Faking sick, telling my family I had to work, getting in my car and driving until I ran out of gas. Anything to avoid what was going to happen. But I went. My sister Amanda and her husband Tom lived in a nice house about 40 minutes away. 2 stories, big yard, the kind of place I'd probably never be able to afford. They'd been married for 4 years and kept making noises about starting a family soon. Tom was a pharmacist, boring but stable. I arrived around 1 in the afternoon. Mom and Dad were already there, along with Tom's parents. Everyone was in a good mood. The house smelled like turkey and pie. Football was on TV. Everything was normal. We ate around 3. Amanda had gone all out with the decorations, fall leaves and little pumpkins everywhere. The table looked like something from a magazine. I sat between my mom and Tom's dad, directly across from my father. Dad looked the same as always. 62 years old, mostly bald, a little overweight, but not too bad. He'd retired from his job at the power company 2 years ago and spent most of his time now working on his boat and complaining about the HOA. He was in a good mood today, telling stories about his fishing trip last month, laughing at Tom's dad's jokes. The food was pretty good. Amanda had outdone herself. We went around the table saying what we were thankful for. Mom talked about her grandkids, hypothetical future ones, a not so subtle jab at Amanda and me. Tom talked about his family. Amanda talked about their house. Dad talked about retirement. I said I was thankful for my new job, which I was starting in 2 weeks. Everything was fine until dessert. We were having pie in the living room, scattered around on various couches and chairs, when Dad put his plate down and cleared his throat. I wanted to talk to you all about something, he said. The room got quiet. Mom looked at him with a little frown. Harold, what is it? Dad looked uncomfortable, more uncomfortable than I'd ever seen him. He cleared his throat again. I've been thinking about this for a while, and I talked to a lawyer a few months ago, just to understand the process. I'm planning to file for divorce. Ooh. The room went completely silent. Amanda's fork clattered on her plate. Mom's face went white. What? Mom's voice was barely a whisper. I'm not happy, Janet. Sorry, I'm not happy, Janet. I haven't been happy for a long time. I stayed because the kids were at home, and then I stayed because I thought maybe retirement would make things better, but it hasn't. I want something different for however many years I have left. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. My father was sitting there, calmly explaining that he was ending his 35-year marriage. And everyone in the room was staring at him like he just announced he was going to burn the house down. Dad, what the hell? Amanda's voice was shaking. I know this is hard to hear, but I've made up my mind. My mom stood up, her pie plate tumbling to the floor. Pumpkin fillings splattered across the carpet. 35 years, Harold. 35 years, and you're telling me this now, on Thanksgiving, in front of everyone. I thought it would be better to tell the family all at once. Better? You thought this would be better? The argument escalated from there. Voices got louder. Amanda started crying. Tom tried to calm everyone down, which just made it worse. Tom's parents sat frozen on the couch, looking like they wished they could disappear. I just sat there, my piece of pie untouched, watching my family fall apart. At some point I went outside. I stood in Amanda's backyard, breathing cold November air, trying to process what I'd just witnessed. My phone was in my pocket. I pulled it out and looked at the call history. How satisfied were you with the seating arrangements? Would you say the family conversation was appropriate and comfortable? Or would you have preferred different topics? On a scale of 1 to 10, how traumatic would you rate the revelation shared by your father during dinner? He knew. Whoever was calling me, whoever was sending letters, he'd known this was going to happen. He'd known about the accident. He'd known about the job interview, and he'd known about this. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Hello, Aaron. What do you want from me? I was surprised by how calm my voice sounded. This is a brief follow-up survey regarding your Thanksgiving experience. On a scale of 1 to 10, no more surveys. You tell me what this is right now, or I'm going to the police. There was a pause. For the first time since this all started, the voice on the other end sounded different, not quite human. The police can't help you, Aaron. Then what do you want? To inform you, to prepare you. For what? On December 17th at 11:52 p.m., you will receive a phone call from your mother. She'll tell you that your father has had a heart attack. You'll drive to St. Mary's Hospital. You will arrive at 12:34 a.m. Your father will already be dead. My legs gave out. I sat down hard on the cold ground. No. I'm calling to ask how you would rate your satisfaction with the care he received. Whether you felt the doctors did everything they could. Whether you believe you should have seen the warning signs. You can't know that. You can't know what's going to happen. I know everything that's going to happen to you, Aaron. Every phone call, every letter, every moment of grief and joy and loss. I know when you'll meet your wife. I know the names of your children. I know what you'll be wearing the day you die. Why? Why are you doing this? Because you answered. Most people don't answer. Most people hang up or block the number after the first call, but you answered, and now I can't stop calling. So I'll stop answering. You will answer on December 17th at 11:52 p.m., and you'll answer every call after that, because you need to know, because you humans always need to know. The line went dead. I sat in my sister's backyard for a long time. Through the windows, I could see my family still arguing. My mom was crying, Amanda was yelling at Dad, Tom was on his phone, probably calling someone for advice. All of it playing out exactly as the voice had said it would. I thought about December 17th. I thought about my phone ringing at 11:52 p.m. I thought about knowing, with absolute certainty, what was going to happen and being powerless to stop it. I could throw my phone away. I could change my number. I could move to a different city, a different state. But I knew, the way you always know things in nightmares, that it wouldn't matter. The calls would find me. The letters would find me. Because I had answered, and that was 3 weeks ago. I've tried everything. I've blocked the number dozens of times. I've changed my number twice. I've gone to the police, who told me that there was nothing they could do unless the caller made an actual threat. I've talked to a therapist who suggested I might be experiencing a stress-induced psychotic break. I've tried not answering. The phone just keeps ringing. Sometimes for hours. The longest stretch was 16 hours of continuous calling. I lasted until hour 14 before I picked up. It's always the same voice, always the same format. Satisfaction surveys about things that are going to happen to me. Some of them are minor, a delayed flight, a parking ticket, a bad date with a woman named Michelle, who I haven't met yet. Some of them are worse, an illness, a funeral, a betrayal by someone I trust. The worst part is that I've started to depend on it. When something bad is coming, at least I know. I can prepare. I can brace myself. The calls have become a terrible kind of comfort. My dad is fine right now, by the way. I called him after Thanksgiving, tried to talk to him about taking care of his health. He thought I was overreacting, and we haven't spoken since. December 17th is in 3 weeks. I don't know what I'm going to do when my phone rings at 11:52 p.m. I don't know if I should try to warn my dad or spend the time between now and then trying to appreciate what's left. I don't know if anything I do will matter. The worst part is that I keep checking my phone, waiting for the next call, waiting for the next survey, because at least then I'll know what's coming. At least then I won't have to wonder. My phone is ringing right now. Unknown number. I know what he's going to ask before I even answer. How satisfied are you with the way your life has changed since you answered the first call? I'm going to answer it. I always do. Because us humans always need to know. Well, that was an insane story. I just kind of feel like it's somewhat a superpower. But at the same time, I just don't know if I'd want to know the future and all the things that are going to happen to me. Ignorance is bliss, I guess. But I don't know. What would you guys do? Like, would you want this? Would you want this to happen to you? The next story today is by the talented Trash Tia from r/scary stories. I'm pretty sure the cheer squad at my college are being used as weapons. I was a freshman and I wanted community, friends. I heard the cheer squad were just an extracurricular group rather than an actual major level class, so I figured I'd give them a shot. It's not like I could ignore them. On my first day moving into my dorm room, I must have walked into the same girl 3 times. I firmly believe it's not possible for a human being to be permanently happy, and yet that was her. She wandered around like the sun shone right out of her ass, and it was both endearing and terrifying. The girl resembled the sun herself, a halo of golden curls held back in a scrunchie, a flaunting sundress, and matching ribbons wrapped around her wrists. The Sunbeam squad were easy to spot because they were all wearing insanely bright yellow, waving around gold streamers with ribbons tangled in their hair. They all spoke in insanely high-pitched voices like they inhaled helium for a living, but that must have been their shtick, right? It was kinda cute. I wasn't expecting such a welcome in the shape of guys and girls looking like they had just stepped off an ABC Kids set. The girl who handed me a flyer and yelled in my face about school spirit was practically hopping up and down, a bright grin splitting her lips apart. I nodded and smiled politely, stuffing the flyer into my bag and heading into my room to finish moving my stuff in. When I looked out the window a few hours later, the Sunbeam squad were still threaded through the crowd, each of them wrapped in glittering fairy lights illuminated by the late evening sunset glow. Sunbeam. Yeah, I got it, but it was still kind of overkill. They were starting to remind me of a cult. That, however, didn't stop me trying out. I'm fairly athletic, and they were exactly what I wanted. I've never really had a group of people I could call friends. Though it's not like I could blame anyone but myself. I was a shut-in for most of high school. I either worked or preferred my own company in my room. One of my biggest regrets is pushing people away, friends I wanted to get even closer to. Because now they had built these lifelong friendships and relationships, and I was stuck at 18 years old with nobody but childhood friends I spoke to once a year when we sent mutual holiday greetings to each other. But college could change that. At least, that's what I hoped. I spoke to as many people as possible on my first day, and in my head, I was making them. Slowly but surely, I was actually making friends in my classes, people I wanted to hang out with. Sunbeam was my attempt to go even further and join a club. Through word of mouth during my first few weeks of classes, I learned they were more of an extracurricular group for fun. They didn't cheer competitively and had been formed in the mid-90s by some kids who wanted to create a community built around positivity and school spirit. Sunbeam had a reputation for being Watson State's beacons, the team's good luck charm. It was well known across campus that the squad was the reason behind the college's fortune. It had been like that since they formed 30 years ago, with members through the generations carrying out that pledge to spread as much pep as possible. While I say they seem nice, judging from what I heard from others, they weren't exactly the easiest clique to get into, unless you were already on the squad. I saw them around campus between classes. They always moved as a group, the 6 of them with their arms wrapped around each other, brandishing the school colors. The guys wore loose-fitting varsity jackets, while the girls flaunted their cheer skirts. The way they acted was a little too close, like they were more than friends, and community and friendship had bled into something else, like they had just walked out of an early 2000s teen movie. Not that I was complaining, I mean, their style was intriguing. They were like this untouchable group of gods placed on the highest pedestals. They ruled over campus, which made me want to get to know them even more. So, I tried out, which was my first mistake of many during freshman year. It didn't hit me that I was in way over my head until I was standing in the college gym in front of a 4-person panel like I was auditioning for a Hollywood movie. Sunbeam took their tryouts incredibly seriously, which was weird considering they were known to be the complete opposite. There were maybe 50 applicants, and we had to stand near the back wall and watch others try out one by one, which was already setting off my anxiety. Weren't they supposed to be closed tryouts only? Initially, I was excited. I had my routine in my head, what I had learned from watching the squad at my old school. High V, low V, followed by a touchdown, and then a backflip. I was confident. I mean, it ticked most cheer moves off the list and even had a flip to complete the routine. My high school was a mixed squad, so I learned a lot from watching the guys' moves during pep rallies. I wasn't really worried about the quality of the moves since they were known for not taking everything too seriously, but watching the others try out, doing impossible flips without crash mats and twisting their bodies in ways I didn't know were possible, I quickly realized I was screwed. My competitors were acting like they were auditioning for an Olympic-level team. My gut was dancing when I took the center stage. The panel was made up of 4 members of the squad, 2 boys and 2 girls, including the blonde who handed me the flyer on my first day. I was surprised when her eyes lit up with recognition. "Oh, I know you," she squeaked, leaning forward. Her smile seemed to brighten, illuminating her features. All 4 of them seemed to emanate a warm glow. I felt myself relax slightly, the knot in my stomach loosening. Maybe their heightened positivity thing wasn't a shtick after all. The girl, as well as the other members of the team, seemed genuinely happy to see me trying out. "What's your name?" Her voice reverberated off the walls, and I suddenly became aware of the dozens of other students watching me. "Alex," I said, offering a shy wave. "Hey." Still grinning, she nudged the redhead next to her playfully. The guy was like no one I'd ever seen before. He was a goddamn traffic light. He was easy to spot in a crowd and was usually one of the low-key members who kept his head down. All those colors painted across him, and yet somehow he wasn't blinding people. Though, admittedly, they suited him. Bright red hair clashed with the blue and gold of his football jersey. His pasty skin and dark eyes drinking me in while the blonde girl tugged on his sleeve. "See, I told you annoying freshmen would work." In response, he chuckled, rolling his eyes. "Whatever you say, Evie." The guy straightened up, leaning his chin on his fist, a curious spark in his eyes. "All right." Twisting around in his chair, he signaled for music. When it started, the beat slammed into me, rumbling beneath my feet. "Let's see what you've got." I'm not going to describe my routine because I don't have time to explain how bad I was. In my head, I was doing okay. I was ready to finish with my backflip, but the music abruptly cut off, and I found myself struggling to catch my breath with my hands in the air, panting like an idiot. The blonde maintained her smile, but it was slightly strained. I could tell she was struggling to keep up the facade of a Sunbeam member while also retaining critical thinking. The redhead looked like he was in pain. He was the first to speak, and I could tell by his sympathetic smile that I'd screwed up. The others, who I hadn't fully taken in until that moment, an Asian American guy and a girl with pigtails, were laughing like preschoolers. They didn't stop until the redhead shot them a warning look. Weirdly enough, the crowd of onlookers didn't join in. I expected the redhead to politely tell me I sucked, but instead, he cocked his head, chewing on his pen. "You're good," he said. "You're a good dancer, and I liked your moves." He trailed off, but it's positivity we're looking for, and you didn't smile once during your whole routine, which made you look stiff, like you weren't even enjoying it. He shrugged helplessly. "I like you, and I like your dancing. I'm sure you could be even better if you worked on it. There are countless dance clubs here, so maybe you'd be better suited there." After exchanging a look with the blonde, he sighed. "Unfortunately, you're not the type of person we're looking for." Evie nodded. "I agree. We pride ourselves on staying positive and smiling. I didn't see that in you, Alex." "Same here." Pigtails, still giggling, joined in. "I don't think you've got enough school spirit." The other guy scoffed. He looked to be of Korean descent. Unlike the redhead, he was always at the center of their group, always joking around and laughing. Just looking at him told me he was the leader. "Bullshit." He slapped the table with one hand, running the other through his thick dark hair. "I liked it. Screw pep, am I right?" He threw his pen at the blonde, who retaliated with a squeak, lobbing hers back at him. Ignore these clowns. I think you've got what it takes. We've just got to work on you, you know? All you're missing is a cheesy grin. He pointed to himself, stretching his lips into the widest smile he could muster. See? Like this. Clowns? Evie shook her head. I didn't see one smile. Sunbeam is all about smiling. You make us sound like a cult. The Korean American guy caught my eye. Which we're not, by the way. These guys are just scared of change. Okay, that's too far. Pigtails shot him a scowl. Are you seriously disrespecting the alumni who created us? Who birthed us? Well, yeah. He threw his paper at her. Sunbeam is a pep cult. We get high off happiness. I thought we established that. Take that back. Never. Why do you think I joined? To get high. Do you really think I joined for the cheering? They were joking around. I could tell by the smiles on their faces. A smile I knew I would never be able to mimic. Quiet. The redhead shushed them. The guy had been sitting silently, studying me. He leaned back, folding his arms. See, even now, even when I'm considering giving you a chance, there's no hope in your eyes. Not even a glitter of excitement. You're still not smiling, and that's what we want, Alex. We want people who will embody what Sunbeam is all about. Even if I give you a second chance to brighten up your routine, your smile will be fake, and that's not what we want. We want people who are willing to shed their humanity and become beacons. Beacons, huh? And they were seriously saying they weren't a cult. The redhead stabbed at his sheet of paper with the end of his pen. Can't you just give us one smile? It won't kill you. That was when the others started laughing, and I wanted to punch the asshole in the face. Dude, chill. The Korean American played with his pen, twirling it between his fingers. He's right. As much as I hate saying it, we do need smilers, unfortunately. But hey, you can try out next year. Just remember to smile, alright? He threw something at me, a squash candy bar, which somehow made me look even more pathetic. I found myself nodding, even when I knew it was all bullshit. Still, what each member had told me hit harder than it should have. They were just words. What could they do? It turned out words were far more powerful than I realized. I just didn't know it yet. I didn't wait for the others to speak and made a quick getaway, my gut twisting and turning. They were a cult. That's what I decided. These guys were a cult who needed members willing to throw away their souls, probably for ritualistic sacrifice. They needed weak people, I thought, even when part of me knew they were right. I wasn't a smiler. Every photo I'm in, I'm either frowning or look constipated. Still, I didn't dwell on the tryouts for too long. By the time a week had gone by, I had mostly forgotten about it and threw myself into studies and college life. Though something was wrong with me. It was as if the world had slowed down, had stopped making sense completely. Every day felt like a dream, and I felt like a ghost, like I was dissociating from my own body. Conversations with people felt fake, like I was making them up. I remember waking up day after day in a daze I couldn't pull myself out of. It was only several weeks later that the thick mind fog blanketing my mind finally lifted. Only for me to hear the news that all 6 members of the Sunbeam squad had disappeared. I don't know how I didn't notice, how I didn't see the police investigation or hear rumors spreading around like a wildfire. According to the college, it wasn't technically considered a disappearance since the members were all over 18 and no longer minors. However, an investigation was conducted with a statement released saying they were due to perform at Knoxville College, cheering on our team. But they never turned up. And what made it worse was their bus had been found abandoned on the side of the road in the middle of nowhere. Sounds bad, right? Well, that's what we all thought. Vigils were already being held, and bodies hadn't even been found yet. Every time I walked back to my dorm after classes, the night glowed with warm golden light, candles flickering in the breeze. I'm not sure how many days went by. They all blurred together. Then our college made another statement. The members of the Sunbeam squad were alive and healthy and had been sent to a training academy for professionals. When the student body responded with confusion and skepticism, the college reassured us that they would return once they were finished training. And while my classmates were relieved, I found myself confused. Sunbeam didn't cheer competitively. Their whole thing was spreading cheer and pep regardless of how good they were. I'd seen them perform, and they were good, sure, Better than average, but definitely not good enough to be trained into pros. Their moves were too clumsy, too half-assed, which I was convinced they thought overwhelming positivity could somehow fix. So it didn't make sense that they had been sent to some elite training academy. I kept up my skepticism until I saw them for myself. The college was right. Sunbeam returned a week later like nothing had happened. I didn't notice a change in them. I think everyone did. Sunbeam were known for their pep and cheer, their constant smiling faces that drove me crazy, and it's not like that stopped. They still smiled. They still wandered around campus laughing together in their own little world. That was when people were watching. When they didn't have an audience, though, they detached from each other. Their eyes darkened, expressions twisting like each of them could smell something rotting in the air. I started noticing they were getting progressively clumsier at keeping up the Sunbeam facade they must have pledged themselves to when they joined the group. I figured it was just exhaustion. They must have been through intense training. Anyways, months passed. I started feeling less distant, and the fog choking me faded, finally. I started junior year moving into a shared house with my roommate, and the only thing I heard about Sunbeam was that one of their ex-members was rumored to be pregnant. As for the rest of the squad, they were still popular, still talked about, but their disappearance had definitely made people wary of them. I even heard someone say they were considered bad luck. I guess people thought they had sold themselves out for a chance to make it into the big leagues, and honestly, it wouldn't surprise me. Forced positivity can get you far, sure, but recognition can get you further. It was just a few weeks ago when I was invited to a game, our first of the season after delays caused by cuts to the sports department. I'm not much of a sports fan, but I needed a distraction from the mountain of assignments piling up on my desk. When I sat down with a chili dog and Coke, I wasn't expecting to get so invested in a game where I had no clue what was happening. It was loud and obnoxious, and I was choking on the stink of fried food, but it was fun. It was fun until Sunbeam walked out onto the sidelines. I glimpsed them in a blur of blue and gold, and a dull pain crawled across the back of my head. "You okay?" My housemate's voice was barely distinguishable when I found myself transfixed by the way they moved in erratic jumps, quickly taking position. They had gotten better. Everything that made Sunbeam what it was had been stripped away. Their smiles were forced, wrong. I remembered how they used to push and shove each other, making the crowd laugh. Now they moved in near-perfect sync, no longer shaky or stumbling into each other. Their routine was longer than usual, and when the Korean-American guy perfected a triple flip, the crowd went insane. I expected him to smile when he landed, grinning into the audience to generate the kind of energy Sunbeam thrived on, but his expression stayed stoic, robotic. They were stiff, heads up, back straight, staring ahead. I had been told during tryouts that fake smiles weren't allowed, and yet that was all I was seeing. Egotistical grins, curled lips, quick glances between each member. I expected reassuring looks and inside jokes only they understood. Instead, it looked like a mutual agreement, something they were planning. And from the looks on their faces, it wasn't a fireworks show. Sunbeam used to generate happiness. Their smiles, even beneath the facade, had once been real. Now they emanated power. The way they stood. The guys at the front preparing what I guessed was a lift. The girls balancing on top of them. Their routine ended with the music reaching a climax. The two main girls raised high in the air while performing high V's. But they didn't stop there. When the crowd exploded with applause, one of the girls slowly raised her arms and shot finger guns into the audience. She fired twice, and every time she pulled the imaginary trigger, her painted lips stretched into a maniacal grin, until her gaze landed on me, and then behind me. I could see it in her glittering eyes I could no longer call human. I met Evie at the start of freshman year, and again during the disastrous tryouts. I knew her wide smile and the glint of passion twisting her expression, a love for the group and its members she couldn't put into words. But right then, I wasn't seeing Evie, a Sunbeam cheerleader. I was seeing something else entirely. A being scanning faces in the crowd for a victim. Her expression melted from gleeful delight into something twisted and putrid. Someone craving the exact opposite of everything Sunbeam preached. I watched her lips. I watched the words form silently, drowned out by the crowd's cheering. But I saw them clearly. Drop. She said it before pulling the imaginary trigger again. No sooner had the word left her mouth than someone screamed behind me. I twisted around to see a guy collapsed on the ground. He was pronounced dead 5 minutes later by his sobbing girlfriend who had attempted CPR. When I turned back to the field, the Sunbeam squad were gone. It didn't make sense that they could have caused the guy's death, but it couldn't have been a coincidence, right? Evie had fired into the crowd at the exact moment he dropped dead. Finger guns weren't weapons, obviously, but the timing was too perfect. I already knew there was something wrong with Sunbeam. Obviously, when I tried to tell people this, I was called crazy, delusional. I reported it to the student information building and got nothing but a blank stare. The woman wasn't even attempting to hear my story. She heard murder and Sunbeam, and her lips curved into an amused smirk. You know, you are quite fascinating. Leaning back in her chair, the woman frowned at me through wonky glasses. First, you unexpectedly quit, and then you accused them of murder, which I can tell you is false. She flipped through a notebook in front of her. According to the autopsy report released a few days ago, the young man died of a brain hemorrhage, not the result of being pretend shot by a cheerleader miming finger guns. The woman cleared her throat. Tell me, what exactly do you have against the Sunbeam squad? What? You quit the squad at the end of your freshman year, she said, and now you're trying to accuse them of murder? Fascinating. Her words struck me, a shiver sliding down my spine. The office was cozy, and when I sank into the rich leather couch in front of a roaring fire, I recognized the book on her desk. It was a dog-eared copy of Harry Potter. I'd seen it before, but that was impossible. I had never been in her office. Quit? I shook my head. No, I don't. I trailed off, stumbling over my words. I've never been a part of Sunbeam. Were you not? She shook her head, a crease forming between her brows. Ah, I must be getting you mixed up with someone else. I nodded. Just, can you listen to me? That Evie girl was fucking... She cut me off. Language. Sorry, Evie, she was... I don't know what she was doing. It was like magic. Are you sure you didn't dream it? Yes. The woman cleared her throat, dismissing my protests. I'm not a doctor, but if you're experiencing memory loss and confusion, I suggest going to the hospital. As for your ludicrous claims, you should keep them to yourself. That poor young man died from a brain hemorrhage. Terrible and tragic, yes, but accidental and not the work of... She tilted her head. I'm sorry, what exactly were you claiming it to be? Magic, I said again. When she raised a brow, I couldn't resist groaning. I saw her. She shot into the crowd and mouthed something. She mouthed something. Yes, but... Again, her words sliced into mine. Okay, let's say you were right, she said. If this girl shot into the crowd with her imaginary gun, wouldn't it be a gunshot wound that killed him? You said it yourself. It was some kind of witchy magic, so where was the bullet wound? Exactly. There wasn't one, because the man suffered a hemorrhagic stroke, and nothing could be done to save him. Your claims that a group of teenagers carried this out as a murder are not only blatant defamation, but also deeply disrespectful to the young man and his family. Now, please leave my office. I don't want to discuss this anymore. The woman nodded toward the door. I think you've been watching too much TV. Might I suggest focusing on your studies? I left her office, slamming the door behind me. My housemate wasn't much help when I told him. He said I was maybe a little too obsessed with Sunbeam. He headed to work, and I ended up in the lounge trying to focus on an episode of Criminal Minds, but I couldn't stop thinking about Evie. I saw what she said. Drop. But it wasn't the force of her imaginary finger guns ricocheting back. It was the word itself. Drop. It had been alive on her lips, like a sentient thing bleeding into existence. I eventually fell asleep, twisted like a pretzel in my housemate's favorite chair, only for 3 loud knocks on the door to tear me from my slumber. I was on my feet immediately, blinking in confusion. We almost never got visitors. Stumbling toward the door, I hesitated. I imagined Evie standing on the other side. I imagined her raising her arm and shooting her pretend finger guns directly into my head. When I opened the door, I was surprised to find 3 little kids. The youngest couldn't have been older than 9. To my surprise, they were dressed in Halloween costumes. There was a little witch, a ghost, and a scarecrow, all carrying pumpkin-shaped candy buckets. It took me a moment to realize I was staring at trick-or-treaters. It wasn't even mid-October yet. "Hey there," I said. You guys are a little early." The little girl's eyes were wide and unblinking. "We want candy," she said, holding out her bucket. "Now." I decided to be firm. "It's not Halloween." I took a small step back, tightening my grip on the door handle, ready to slam it shut. These little shits were freaking me out. It wasn't just their tone, their expressions were completely vacant. There were no lights on behind their eyes, and that terrified me. "Sorry, kids, I don't have any candy, but like I said, come back when it's actually Halloween, and I'll have candy bars for all of you." What I wasn't expecting was for the scarecrow to pull a knife from his pumpkin bucket. He didn't hold it clumsily like a child would. There was something deliberate in the way his fingers wrapped around the handle, like he'd held one before. The kid pressed the knife to his own throat and made a slicing motion. Like the little girl, his eyes were blank and unblinking. Something was wrong with the way he stood. Stiff, puppet-like. "Are you kidding me?" He squeaked out a laugh. I didn't even see him lunge. I was already stumbling backwards, losing my footing. The kid moved with impossible speed, and before I knew what was happening, the hilt of the knife was buried in my lower leg. I didn't even feel the pain at first. My body was fueled entirely by adrenaline, pushing me to get away from him. I remember falling backwards. I remember my trembling hands wrapping around the handle and yanking the knife free. Red spilled down my jeans and splattered across the hardwood floor. The kids turned and sprinted down the steps into the night, and I watched them in a daze. They didn't move normally. They stalked down the sidewalk like video game characters. The witch shoved a passing old man before pulling out a gun and pointing it at his head, but she didn't shoot. The 3 of them ran off, and it was only when I watched the tip of the witch's hat disappear into the darkness that I caught sight of something in the corner of my eye. Before I heard laughter. The tree in front of me moved. At first, I thought they were shadows. Then the shadows bled into figures. 4 of them. I caught flashes of the school colors, blue and gold, twin ponytails, velvet blonde hair, the unmistakable sunbeam varsity jacket. The group laughed and whispered among themselves, not exactly making much effort to hide. When they stepped out from behind the tree, I recognized Evie immediately. Her fingers were pressed gingerly against her nose, while thick red pooled down her chin. The others were the same, swiping at their faces with jacket sleeves. They didn't seem fazed. The redhead's gaze stayed latched onto the retreating children, his lips curling into a grin. I could sense he was still tethered to them, still commanding them to act out Grand Theft Auto. They had caused the man's death through the game, controlling those children like puppets. I wasn't crazy or delusional. Evie had killed someone by shooting imaginary finger guns, and somehow the others were able to bleed into children's heads and take them over. Pulling my phone from my pocket, I heaved out a breath. The pain was starting to hit in waves I had to grit through. I couldn't move. I was stuck curled on the floor while they laughed. I was halfway through punching 911 into my phone when one of them came over. The Korean American. The one who had been the nicest to me out of all of them. The genuine smile I remembered was gone, replaced by something inhuman. Something I didn't want to question. With his hand shoved into his varsity jacket pockets, he approached me with mocking eyes, almost like he was trying to mimic his old self. The guy knelt in front of me with a chuckle. Kids these days, right? They're animals. His voice, no, his words hurt me. I felt each one penetrate me like gunshots. My wound wasn't bad, at least that's what I estimated. I didn't think the kid had hit anything vital, but I needed the emergency room. One hand still clamped over my side, drenched in red. I managed to hiss, reaching for my phone when he snatched it from my grasp and waved it in the air. "Screw off, what did you do to those kids?" I gritted out, trying to grab my damn phone. The pain in my side was getting worse. It hurt like a motherfucker. Dizzying bolts of electricity crashing through me like waves of boiling water. I tried to get onto my knees, but he shoved me back down. The guy cocked his head, confusion creasing his expression. Ouch, that must hurt. What did you do? I hissed. His presence was hurting me. Every time he opened his mouth, it was agony. Somehow, it was worse than the stab wound. This pain was unlike anything I'd ever felt before, the kind I'd rather die than experience. A cry clawed its way up my throat, fight or flight taking over. Again, I tried to move, tried to get away from him. But he pinned down my arms and prodded at my side before sticking his finger into the cut and twisting. I didn't do anything, Alex. His voice barely hit me before my vision blurred and I screamed. Like an animal, I screamed. But not because his fingers were digging around inside me. My brain was suddenly boiling, a metal rod piercing my skull and stirring it into soup. His voice was inside my brain, bleeding into me, taking me over. But it wasn't just his voice. The world blurred around me, and suddenly I wasn't in my doorway anymore, bleeding against the wall. I was moving, walking. No, being dragged. Except these weren't my memories. This wasn't my mind. I could see bare feet beneath me, slapping softly against white tiles. When I looked up, there was only white stretching ahead of me, like I was being led straight into the clouds. This was a building, glass doors, electronic panels, people in black guarding each entrance. It took a while for me to regain my senses, or maybe for him to regain his. We could smell the chlorine and taste rusty coins at the back of our throat, feel the freezing tiles against our bare feet. There was a strange sensation at the back of our head. We kept wanting to run our fingers through our hair, but every attempt only touched bare skin. Scuffed, uneven skin. Tight fingers were wrapped around our arm, dragging us deeper into the white oblivion until a glass door appeared, seemingly out of nowhere. From now on, I'm going to describe his memories vaguely. I'm only going to tell you what I saw. The room reminded me of a classroom, except there were no desks. The other members of Sunbeam stood pressed against the back wall, staring straight ahead, their eyes fixed on nothing, but I could see them trembling, terrified. The squad wore pale white shorts and t-shirts stained with ugly red splatters. Glitter still clung to their faces, ribbons hung from bedraggled curls. Their feet were bare and filthy, just like ours. When we were shoved forward, we took our place beside Evie, who had half her hair shaved off. Her arms were folded over her cheer uniform, her bare feet tapping against the floor. A woman with dark red hair tied in a severe ponytail stepped into the room and asked if either of us wanted to show her what we'd learned. Evie eagerly raised her hand. Okay, Evie. The woman's voice was too sweet, sickly sweet. She gestured her forward. Show us what you got. The door opened and a man stepped inside. His hands were tied in front of him, his eyes empty. Evie nodded, determination burning in her expression. She cleared her throat. Shatter. Nothing happened. Intent, Evie, the woman corrected. It doesn't matter how you say the word unless you use proper intent. Try again. The girl growled in frustration. Shatter. The man's head flew from his torso in a river of red, and the girl squealed in excitement. While we watched in horror, the rest of the squad slowly surrendered to despair. Different days bled together. Faces changed. Heads were shaved. Hair grew back. Fear turned into joy. A blonde girl exploded into bloody chunks that splattered across the walls. Yes, the redhead yelled, high-fiving pigtails before launching into some bizarre handshake. That's what I'm talking about. Bang, one of the girls cried, forming finger guns. With every shot, innocent people dropped against the wall, one by one, their skulls blown apart. She bounced excitedly on her toes. Bang, bang, bang. Keep going, the woman's voice crackled through a speaker. You've almost got it. Divide. Pigtails pointed at an old man who was instantly torn apart by an invisible force, wet chunks of him slamming onto the floor. Show off, the redhead sang. He lounged against the black wall, using his jersey to wipe blood from his face while the others painted the room scarlet. With simple words and hand gestures, they could tear people apart piece by piece. Pigtail snorted when another test subject was dragged in. Oh, you think you can do better? Think I can, the redhead laughed. I know I can. This time he jammed 2 fingers against his temples. The other stood against the wall with folded arms while he stepped into the center of the room. Rip it out. The subject's eyes widened. Trembling hands clawed at her own skull, fingernails shredding flesh. Rip it out? His lip curled. That's what I said. We never saw her rip her own brain from her head. We were already curled up with our forehead pressed to the floor, screaming into our knees. Another flash, another scene. This time we were slicing into our wrists with shards of glass, pulling back strips of flesh to reveal 2 wires tangled through muscle and bone. One red, one blue. Why won't you submit? A sharp voice snarled. Our body was strapped to metal restraints. Out of all of them, you refuse it. A hand cracked across our face. You don't want it. He started laughing. You don't want control? He leaned closer. Tell me to mutilate myself. Tell me to tear out my own brainstem. That's the beauty of it. No matter how impossible the order is, it will be completed. Control, my boy. Use it. Do you understand how much you're going to shape this world? Words. Do you know how powerful they are? Spoken from the right mouth, with the right intent, they can cause bloodshed, pain, misery, despair drowning our already shattered earth. And you will stand at the center of it. You will bring this world to its knees, Jason. Now do it. We call it cutting, but you might find it easier to call it eraser. Make up your own word if you want. The only thing that matters is intent. Something sliced into our arm. It wasn't medical. It was torture. He drove something sharp into the wound and twisted until we threw our head back and screamed at the ceiling. You're the last one, the man hissed. Do it. No. His voice, our voice, cracked apart. I can't. Do it. He dragged us down another long corridor until we reached a second room. Drown. Jason's voice suddenly echoed inside my skull. I could feel him resisting it, trying to hold back the force behind his own words, but the command kept slipping free. Drown, 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 drown. We stood in the doorway of a smaller room. In the corner, a figure sat curled against the wall. A guy. I recognized our school colors immediately. A blood-stained varsity jacket over shorts and a t-shirt. When he lifted his head and turned toward us, my breath caught in my throat. He looked exactly like me. No, it was me. His eyes were hollow and haunted. My mother's eyes stripped of everything human. Like someone had hollowed him out and left behind a shell. As suddenly as the memories came, they were ripped away. I blinked hard, and Jason looked just as confused as I felt. Slowly, he pulled his finger from my wound. The man's voice still echoed inside my skull, agonizing and relentless. I could feel the command clawing through my nervous system, my body preparing to obey something that didn't even exist anymore. This was just a trick, he muttered. Yeah, just a trick. I found myself nodding automatically. Just a trick, I whispered. Blood spilled from my nose, splattering down my chin. Louder, he ordered. Just a trick, I screamed. The force of the words dropped me to my knees. I panted against the floor while Jason frowned down at me. Suddenly uncertain, he wrapped my wound and told me it wasn't bad, and somehow it wasn't. I watched in disbelief as my skin slowly stitched itself back together. Go into your kitchen, Jason said. The command ripped through me like bullets. My body moved on its own. I stumbled into the kitchen while he followed behind me, grabbing a scarf from the table. Get on your knees. I obeyed instantly, collapsing onto the floor with my breath trapped in my throat. I could sense the others standing in the doorway as he tied the scarf over my eyes. The heel of his shoe slammed into the back of my neck, forcing me flat against the ground. I want you to wait for me to kill you. The words buried themselves deep inside me, so I waited. Even after they left, even after the door slammed shut, I waited until morning. Only then did control slowly return to my body, enough for me to rip the scarf from my eyes. But I'm still waiting. My brain is trapped in constant panic. I jerk around whenever I'm alone, checking every corner, every shadow. I was dragged to Friday's game against Harrington. During Sunbeam's routine, they did it again. They had the crowd's full attention while Evie mouthed something I couldn't hear. I felt her words anyway, sharp as needles slicing into me, but they didn't fully penetrate. They've done something to the student body. Ever since then, I've caught people staring at me. Those whose minds they've crawled inside, blank, mindless eyes. Every so often, someone brushes against me, fingers wrap around my throat. I hear footsteps trailing behind me. Those little kids from that night. I keep seeing the little witch girl in the corner of my eye. They're building an army, waiting for the moment Jason decides to kill me. If I only knew what happened to the Sunbeam Squad, maybe I could help them somehow. But something tells me they're far beyond help. And so am I. Sometimes I wonder if one day I'll finally be allowed to remember what really happened to me during freshman year, and why, ever since entering Jason's mind, I dream of a white room. Wow, kudos to Trash Tia for always just serving up wonderful stories. So I'm thinking, the OP has to have these same powers too, right? Jeez, I hope nobody else has had this college experience. Anyways, that's all I have for you today. Huge shout out to my channel members. I appreciate you so much. If you guys do want to further support the channel, that link is going to be down in the description. However, it is completely optional, not at all required. If you liked today's video, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe as it helps me out greatly, and I will see you tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Peace.